Heidi ho, Dolly fans! It's near and far Reborn Dolls live. Yes, I'm sure no one's going to be watching this live, so I'm just going to kind of go for it, what I have prepared. If people do end up coming on, I'm going to definitely be here to answer your questions. So one of the things that really bothers me as being part of the Reborn community is that lately we've been having so many scam Reborn sites pop up. And what I hear from experienced collectors when these new collectors get scammed by these sites, they say, well, you should have known better. Well, how are they supposed to know better if we who are experiencing the Reborn community don't help and teach them? So first of all, I just wanted to talk to you a bit about where I come from. I started off as a collector and then I ended up being an artist, so I can see both sides of the issue. And then I'm going to kind of go over some terminology that's really important for you to know and understand as a collector of Reborns and how to educate yourself. So I started collecting dolls when I was very young. Actually, doll collecting runs in my family. We have lots of beautiful dolls that have been passed down through the generations. So kind of grew up being a collector. Really started to do my own collecting. I started with Barbies and Cindy dolls when I was in high school, and then to collectible dolls. Then I had a family, and so the collection kind of went out to the side. And then I came back into doll collecting, and I was like, hey, what's new in doll collecting? This is about 10 years ago. And I discovered these Reborn dolls. And what really interested me about them is with a typical doll, the fun is the search for the doll and then getting the doll, but then you put it up on a shelf and you don't do anything with it. Where Reborn doll collectors, it was so cool because they were actually interacting with their dolls. They were buying them cribs and blankets and pacifiers and clothes, and I just thought that was really, really exciting.
Looking for Jeff.
He just left.
Oh, Jeff just left?
Yeah.
Oh.
He'll be back.
Here you go, then.
Oh, thanks. Peas. Sorry, that was my daughter-in-law brought me peas from the garden. So 10 years ago, I started looking into Reborn dolls. And the first thing, hi, Dottie's Daisies. So I thought I did tons and tons of research. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I took my time to get what I thought was the perfect doll on YouTube. I got a set of twins. They were $250, which to me was a huge amount of money to pay for just a doll. And I was incredibly disappointed. I just was like, what? Why are these so amazing? Hi, Gid. And so it was shortly after that I discovered Shauna Clymer and her beautiful fairy kits. So the very next doll I had made was it's still my collection, was a custom fairy. And she is not the most realistic doll on the planet. I have showed her a lot on my channel, but I love Shauna Clymer's work, and you can't get this sculpt anymore. So at that point I was hooked. And then I did what so many Reborn collectors do, and it's like the Holy Grail. We are searching for the most realistic or the most amazing doll that we possibly can. And we just keep searching and searching and searching. And unfortunately, that has led a lot of people in the Reborn community to be judgmental. So a new collector will spend a couple of $100s, which to them is a huge amount of money, and they show off their doll, and the experienced collectors tend to be like, oh, well, mine's more realistic, and I paid more for my doll. And that doesn't make anybody feel very good at all. There are different levels of collectors. And for a new collector, I think people have been asking me lately, well, why in the world do these people fall for these scam Reborn sites? How can they possibly not know that $100 is too cheap for a Reborn doll? Well, have we done our job as experienced members of the community, as artists of the community, to tell people why $100 is really not a lot for a Reborn doll? So that's kind of why I'm here. That's kind of the message I've been trying to spread, is to answer people's questions about reborn dolls and what they actually are and why they are so expensive. And that's another thing. 10 years ago, when I started collecting dolls, um, the upper end reborn dolls were probably 500 to about $750. This was 10 years ago. This is before we had the amazing sculpts that we had now. We didn't really have that many limited editions back then. Even that was kind of rare back 10 years ago. We have done so many changes in reborn dolls. Back 10 years ago, painted hair was unheard of. Everything was rooted. Another thing 10 years ago is that you drilled holes in the nostril and then put black felt behind it because that was thought to be more realistic. I never saw, most of the dolls looked like they had French manicures. They had like white lines where their nails should be. And now we have beautiful people who paint with lovely half moons. We don't open the noses anymore. We have people who do amazing painted hair. Yes. Yes, Daddy. I absolutely believe that. Yep. So many people have asked me, is this site safe? Is that site safe? The only totally safe site that I know is reborns.com. eBay, yeah, they're getting their Chinese knockoffs on there. If you're a savvy consumer, eBay is okay, but reborns.com is where I would send everybody. And it's unbelievable how many people ask me, what about this site? What about that site? And it's just like, no, reborns.com or eBay if you're a savvy shopper, or heck, even Facebook. I mean, I would go Facebook or Instagram. Follow artists on Facebook or Instagram. Just type in reborn dolls and you'll get all sorts of people who are reborning, and then you can see their actual work. Sometimes I get from collectors, oh, those reborn artists, they're just trying to make money. And sometimes I actually kind of agree with them. I've seen reborns go from really high end reborns go from 500 to 750 to now I see vinyl reborns going for $2,000. And, if you want to pay $2,000 for a realistic doll, that's great. Congratulations. If you're an artist that can get people to pay $2,000 for your art, more power to you. I bow to you, artist. I bow to you. I'm not going to take away from you. But I also believe that we need to do a better job of making reborn dolls affordable, realistic reborn dolls affordable to more people. Yeah, that's exactly it, Dottie, is that so many of us who have been in the community for a long time, when we started, we thought $250 was a ton of money to pay for a doll. And now, the dolls that I tend to buy personally for my collection is probably around the $500 mark. That seems to be the sweet spot for me, that it's not overly inflated for prices, but it's extremely realistic. So that's kind of my sweet spot. But I know as a new collector, $500 for a doll? I mean, that's just crazy. And so I don't want people to have to pay that kind of money to get a realistic doll. And I agree, Dottie. I try to keep my prices low, but at the same time, I have been doing this for almost 6 years, and I feel that I want to keep them at that price. Dottie, that's where my dolls mostly end up. The only time they end up over $350 is when the kit is expensive. And that's the other thing. Kits have just gone up and up in price. And with COVID, all the cheap kits are gone, people. If you want a cheap kit, they're at Bountiful Baby. You type in Bountiful Baby and go to their gallery, and you'll see all their inexpensive kits are sold out. They're out of stock. They're who knows when they're going to come back. And so what's left are the more expensive sculpts. So I want to share with people some terminology. So just so that people are aware when they go to talk to artists about what they're doing. So the first one I want to share with you is this one, the words reborn doll. Now you wouldn't think that would be all that difficult. What's a reborn doll? Well, There is some disagreement even in the Reborn community. What makes a Reborn doll? I hope this is going in the right direction because it looks backwards to me. What's a Reborn doll? So I'm going to give you the narrow definition, and then I'm going to give you the broad definition. So the narrow definition of a Reborn doll is a doll that's painted by an artist and it is made of vinyl. Most Reborn dolls have a vinyl head, limbs, but sometimes they're all vinyl and sometimes just their head is vinyl. And they are modeled after real babies and they're sculpted by amazing sculptors. So that's the narrow definition of a Reborn doll. A Reborn doll tends, a decent Reborn doll, one that looks realistic, is probably in the $200 range and up. Like I said, I've seen them up to $2,000 before. But there's also a broader definition. If you go to the Rose Doll Show, for example, you're not just going to see vinyl dolls. So there's also what I call, for lack of a better word, entry-level Reborn dolls. These are dolls that have minimal painting by human beings. They have some painting by machines. They are more realistic than just a baby doll you buy in the store, but they're not really Reborn dolls. They're starter Reborn dolls. They're designed for children. And they are like your Ashton Drakes and your Paradise Galleries. Those are your lower end Reborn dolls. They're made of vinyl. And then, of course, you have your upper range, and they're still called Reborn dolls. That's what makes it so confusing. And those are your silicone dolls. So the silicone dolls can just be partial silicone, head, limbs, and a cloth body. They can be 100% silicone. Those tend to range in price new from $1,500. I've seen them up to $6,000 or $8,000. So those are your super high end Reborn dolls. But generally, when you're talking about Reborn dolls, you're talking about something that is made of vinyl and has been hand painted. Okay, that's the important part. Vinyl and hand painted. Maybe only parts of it hand painted, maybe all of it hand painted. But that's our definition of Reborn dolls. So the next word I want to go through is, there are two words that are synonyms, sculpt and kit. So the sculpt, sometimes called the kit. I don't like the word kit personally. It sounds like I'm doing a DIY project. I really don't like that. I prefer to call it a sculpt, but most often you're going to see it as a kit. The sculpt is the vinyl parts that are sculpted by a sculptor. But sometimes they're called kits because when we buy them, they're kits. So let me show you an example. I'm just going to grab one off the shelf of a kit or a sculpt. This is Tia. So you can see she's not stuffed or weighted. She's basically kind of a flesh color. Reborns actually come in different colors, which a lot of people don't know. Tia is sort of more of a yellowish skin tone, but there are some that are browner or pinker or whiter. This is the sculpt part. And it's got all those sculptural details. So it's got toes and it's got fingernails and toenails, and that's the kit or the sculpt. Kits and sculpts range in price for me as an artist to purchase them anywhere from about $35 to about $135. Or that I've even seen some sold out ones that are several $100s. So that has a huge impact on your price if you are purchasing a Reborn doll. So if you're buying a legitimate Reborn doll from an artist, the most expensive thing that I have to pay for out of that money is your sculpt. So that's going to affect a lot. So if you're a person that can't afford a really expensive Reborn doll, then you're not going to be able to probably get a limited edition kit. You're probably looking at something that has a little bit less detail, that's not limited edition, and it can still be made beautiful and realistic. And if you're an upper end collector that you're going more for the many hundreds of dollars, then probably most of your kits are limited edition kits. So another couple of words for people, if you still see these words, LE. in describing a reborn doll. LE stands for limited edition. Limited edition. So limited edition means that there's only a certain number made in the world. And once those are gone, they're gone forever. They usually come with a certificate of authenticity, which tells you what number they are in their edition. If you see the words SO in front of LE, I used to think that meant there's only one. No, it means that it's a sold out limited edition. So, artists will pick up limited editions, and sometimes on purpose, they will wait until they're sold out and then paint them to hopefully boost their price to say that they're more. Sometimes they just don't get to them until they're sold out because the edition might be so limited. So SOLE, sold out limited edition. Another term that you might see is this one, OOAK, one of a kind, one of a kind. So that basically means that the artist who made this is not going to make anything else like it ever again. And most collectors, that's what you want. You don't want 20 people walking around with your exact same doll. And so we try to make sure all of our dolls as artists are one of a kind. Even if someone says, can you paint that exact same sculpt and can it have the same color eyes and the same color hair? We try to do something different about it so that we don't want you to feel like you're getting just a factory version. Another thing I get questions about all the time are these terms, full limb and 3/4 limb. So these are referring to how much of the arms and legs are vinyl. So a full vinyl limb, I'm going to use Tia again here. So this is a full, I don't know. How can I show it to you so you can see? Like that. This is a full vinyl limb, which means it's vinyl from the tip of its toes up to its hip where it's joined with the cloth body. She also has full arms. Full arms. Oop, that's a good view of it. So she's vinyl from the tips of her fingertips up to her shoulder. So why would you want a full limb doll? Well, full limb dolls tend to look more realistic because more of their cloth body is covered up when you dress them in clothes. So once this doll is dressed, you could dress it in something sleeveless and it would still look like a real baby. And the legs go all the way up to the diaper. Where a 3/4 limbed doll would only have vinyl up to about here. So 3/4 up the arm. And the same thing with the leg. It would be vinyl up to about here. And then there'd be cloth, and then there'd be the body. 3/4 limb dolls, they tend to be, in my opinion, just my opinion, they're a little bit more cuddly, a little more soft and squishy. They usually have a little bit more range of movement. So a full limb doll it's like almost like a robot. Like you can rotate the arms up and down, you can rotate the legs up and down, but that's about it. The arms aren't going to go like this way at all. So 3/4 limbs are just a little bit more cuddly and snuggly than your full limbs, but your full limbs do look better in lots of different clothes. Another question that I get asked a lot from people who are collecting is about doll bodies. And a lot of people, this is one thing that's really changed. When I first started selling reborn dolls, nobody ever asked me for pictures of just the body of the doll or the body without any clothes on. And I think that's because there are different styles of bodies now. There used to be only one. Excuse me. And so some people have very definite opinions about what kind of body that they want, cloth body they want. So there's basically two kinds of cloth bodies. You have a jointed body and you have non-jointed bodies. So jointed bodies are what we've had in the industry for many, many years, jointed bodies. So a jointed body has plastic or cardboard joints in them that allow the arm to rotate like this, and the leg also can rotate up and down. So there's, again, more flexibility in the doll. one thing that's nice about as an artist is we can actually cram that doll into a 2-day priority box, especially if it's a really big doll. Some people don't like them. I've heard artists call them helicopter bodies because the dolls can be like kind of floppy like that. But again, if you like cuddliness, if you like a really good range of motion, then you want a jointed doll body. So the other type is non-jointed, and I see non-jointed more with the full limbs than I do the 3/4 limbs. Here's an example of a non-jointed body. So the leg just is connected right up in there like that. And the doll won't be as flexible. It won't be moving around quite as much. There's no joint there. So you might be able to move the arm or leg a little bit up and down. Whoop, 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 like this. So you can probably move it up and down depending on how tight the artist put the zip tie, but you're not going to be able to really move it like this at all. Where with a jointed body, you're going to be able to get to move it. It'll have more movement this way. You'll be able to move it kind of like have the baby kind of open like that. Some people like that and some people don't. This is a non-jointed body. There's no cardboard joints. There's no plastic joints in here. So if anybody's watching, is there any other questions that you guys have about dolls or terminology for dolls? Thank you so much, Dottie's Daisies, for asking those for all your great comments. That's awesome. And if you're an artist, if there's any questions that you have about Reborn dolls, about getting started in Reborn dolls, about what my process is, everyone's process is different. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. I know I kind of did this last minute, this live, but I just thought it would be easier to try to explain some of these things and kind of explain my position, how I feel about the cost of Reborn dolls and what our responsibility is as artists and as members of the Reborn doll community. I've had way too many people in the last few months that have told me that people in the Reborn community have made fun of them because they fell for these scam sites. And they're saying to them things like, you should know better. How are they supposed to know better? How are they supposed to know better? I would like to know. Because 10 years ago, there weren't nearly the pitfalls that there are today in collecting dolls. If I were collecting dolls right now, Reborn dolls right now, I think I probably would have fallen for one of those scam sites. I really do, because they are so deceptive. The only thing I fell for was one bad set of twins on eBay. And now I've learned how to navigate eBay. I've learned how to use the close-up function and really look close up at the doll. I'm not afraid to ask the artist for close-up pictures. That's one of the red flags, actually. If you don't have close-up pictures of things like hands, feet, the back of their head, you should have close-up pictures of every single part of their body, close-up of the face. And I'm not afraid to ask artists for those close-up pictures if I feel that that's going to help me make my decision. But yeah, these scam sites are just getting worse and worse, and it's really up to us, instead of berating people about their choices, is say this is how we need to make it better. And I know that $100 sounds like a lot of money for a doll, and it is. But you can't get one of these Reborn dolls for that amount of money and have it painted individually, realistically by an artist who's got experience and creative and artistic talent and or training. I don't think I have a whole lot of natural talent, but I certainly have been trained very well. I've had lots of artists help me along the way. I've taken classes at the Rose Doll Show. And it's really important for me to just not just keep doing trial and error, but actually getting trained by people who really understand and know what they're doing. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If there's anything you can think of, you can put questions in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. I am still continuing my my scam doll do-overs. And so this gives people an opportunity. If you were scammed by one of these fake Reborn doll sites, I will paint a kit for you for free. So what you have to do is you have to give me some kind of proof that you did get a scam doll from one of these sites. You can send me pictures. You can videotape the doll. You can show me the box opening. Some people have mailed the kits to me. Just some kind of proof that yes, you were scammed. And then if you purchase a kit, a body, your glass beads and eyes, if you are getting a kit with eyes, I will paint that doll free for you. Now, a lot of I've had 3 people take me up on this. But keep in mind that I squeeze those in between all my custom dolls. And right now I am just swimming in customs. So I've got my Tinky back there for a custom doll. I've got a set of Aspen twins that I'm going to be starting here in a few days. And just a lot on my plate. But I will be happy to teach you and show you what a real Reborn doll is supposed to look like. But you just have to buy the materials for me, and you have to pay the shipping as well. So I'm willing to donate my time to show you that in the Reborn community, we take care of each other and we help educate each other, and we don't judge you for making that decision. Yeah, I want to be able to learn how to do fantasy dolls along with real looking dolls. Well, here's a suggestion that my mentor gave me, because I got into making Reborn dolls because people weren't making the fantasy dolls that I wanted. 10 years ago, again, people like Twisted Beanstalk were making zombie babies and vampire babies, and those are great. She does an awesome job with those. But I wanted, fairies, and I wanted characters from the Wizard of Oz and mermaids and stuff. And so I wanted to just jump right into those fantasy characters. And my mentor artist said, you know what? You really need to know how to make the realistic dolls first, and then you can move on to the fantasy dolls. Because to make the fantasy dolls, what you're basically doing is you're just doing tiny tweaks of realistic dolls. So one of my problems is a lot of fantasy painters, they don't have a really good grounding in what real dolls look like. And so when they paint their dolls, they're very flat, I guess is the word I want. It's just, like if they paint I don't know, let's pick Wicked Witch of the West because my room happens to be green. The skin tone of the doll will be like the color of this wall. It'll be just like one-dimensional. It will not look good. So that's what I would suggest is you start painting realistic dolls. You can get tutorials online. There's a lot of great stuff on YouTube, or you can pay for one if you really want to. But there's a lot of great free stuff on YouTube, and just practice with the realistic dolls. And then what you want to start doing is just start tweaking the colors just a bit. Can you make the blue brighter? Can you make the red brighter, the yellow brighter? Just kind of experiment that way. Just start tweaking your colors, because it's amazing with Reborn dolls what little tiny tweaks will do to change what your doll looks like. When like the first time I painted like a ghost baby or a very, very pale zombie baby, I did all the same layers that I normally do. I just added a bunch of titanium white. So instead of like doing like a bright blushing on the cheeks, I just did a pale, pale pink. Instead of doing, you know, the vein blue, which is a very dark blue green. I did a very pale blue. I just paled everything down. And she came out really, really gorgeous. She had all the pale color I was looking for, but her skin tone had the depth that I was looking for too. It still had that little bit of blush on the cheek. It still had the blue undertones, the purple undertones. And that's going to make it look so much more realistic than just painting with a flat color. So yeah, experiment, 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 but start with the reals and then work your way into the fantasy babies. And yes, they are so much fun to paint. I'm super excited here. I'm going to be painting it's a little ways down. It's like the fourth custom down, but I'm going to be painting again the Janice kit, which I've already painted once. Super excited. This person has got some great ideas for Janice, and with a boy on one side and the girl on the other with totally different skin tones, and she's got it all planned out. So I'm super excited to be able to execute her vision. But yeah, definitely start with the realistic dolls first. Let me show you one of my favorite fantasy dolls, since you happen to mention it. Oh, and she's very floppy, but that's why I love her. So I'm obsessed with the Wizard of Oz. I have all sorts of Wizard of Oz characters that I've made. So this is my absolute favorite of all the dolls I've made. This is the Jade kit. She's a sold out limited edition now, quite an older kit. But I've made her into the Patchwork Girl of Oz, who was always my favorite character growing up. She's a very independent character. And I love how she's painted. She's painted her face is realistic, which is not the way she is in the book, but I was having a hard time really making her look like she's supposed to look in the book. And then all of her limbs, it's hard to tell because her dress kind of covers things up. She is like a patchwork quilt. So she's sewn together, excuse me, with different types of fabric, and all of this is painted. And then she has a custom, patchwork quilt body made by my mentor artist, Rachel Orange of Orange Grove Nursery. And she also made this patchwork dress for her too. And she's very floppy. I wanted her to be very, very floppy because she's a patchwork girl. She's supposed to be stuffed with cotton, and she's not supposed to be heavy. If you'll recognize her, she is the face of my channel, like my avatar for my channel. And I love her so much. And she was painted actually with air dry paints. That's how I started, was with air dry paints. And so it's a little easier to paint something like this with air dry. But there you go. There she is. I don't show her too much on my channel because she's one of the first dolls I ever made. I think she's number 4. I sold the first 3. Thank you so much. I think she's adorable too. All right. So I've been on long enough. 30 minutes is long enough. But I just want to let you know, if you ever need anything, if you ever need some advice, or would be happy to be someone's mentor artist. Is rooting hair hard to do? Yes, it is. It is terribly hard to do. I hate it. I can't tell you how much I hate rooting. I think because I'm really not a patient person. The thing I love about painting reborns is that every layer, the doll looks different. Like you can see your progress. With rooting, it's just hard to see your progress. You can work for hours and hours hunched over with your little needle, and then you stretch and crack and stand up, and you've been working for an hour and you have like this much done. You're like, ah! Yeah, it is really challenging. It is something I feel like I'm only fair to middling at. I have my moments, but generally speaking, no, it's not something I'm really good at or something that I really like doing. I tend to only root Small newborn heads or preemie heads, I tend to not like to even do anything bigger than that. Because I feel like the bigger the doll gets, then the more you're going to see that my rooting is really not that great. Oh, Ken, I'm so glad. I guess I don't like tedious then. I just have a hard time making it look realistic, and I've had so many classes on like mapping the hair and stuff, and it just, I don't know. It just doesn't look like it. So I tend to root blonde hair a lot because blonde hair, you can't see the flaws. Yeah, you can't see the flaws as much. Where I find that the brown or black hair, you can just every little, like every time you don't have just one hair in there, it really shows. One of my tricks is though, I don't know if I should tell the tricks of the trade, is painting the hair first, especially if you're doing brown or black, painting the hair first and then rooting over the top of it. It makes it so it's not quite as obvious if you get, 3 or 4 hairs in a hole. With blonde hair, it doesn't matter because the blonde hair is basically the same color as the painted head. So it's not obvious if you've got more than one hair in there. But with brown and black hair, it's super obvious. So that's one of the tricks that I have with rooting. But I wish I had you to give you advice on that one. Actually, next year I really want to take a class in rooting and see if it's just I've developed some bad habits or what's going on. I definitely have gotten better in the last year, but I'm not where I would like to be in terms of rooting. And that's somewhere I know that I could improve my dolls a lot if I could do better with that. But one of the biggest challenges I think about being a reborn artist is that even though there's a lot of information out there today, a lot more than when I started, there's still not as much as you would like. And it's very difficult to follow a tutorial on YouTube to really see what's going on. They're not close up enough. You have to use such bright lights to look good on YouTube that it washes out the color, so you can't really tell, how the color is going on. On YouTube, it looks a lot lighter than it is in real life. So, yeah. All right. So I'm going to say, as I always do when I end my videos, TTFN, ta-ta, for now. Thanks for tuning in if you did today for the live.